The handout that says Norfolk Police and Metacomet. It's dated September 5th. I will be giving you monthly updates, and what this update is a budget update on where we stand for both the projects. The BC Construction is tracking two project totals. There's a $5,540,000 for the police headquarters, and there's a $1,985,000 for the MEC. And they're actually invoicing separately for these projects. So what we're doing in our office is we're handling both of those contracts as separate, almost separate projects. So when we say change order one, there's going to be a change order one for the MEC, and then there's be a change order one for the police department. It's for us, I think it's the easiest way to start to track what the contract amounts are for each of these components. But I'm showing you both projects, so I'm not keeping you blind to one and only showing you the other. And as of September 5th, we have, they're not requisitioning for any change orders in the past, but we do have some change orders to act on today. So the change order summary for the police department is there are two items that have actually been processed or recommended for approval. One is the adjustment to the elevator allowance, and that ends up to be a credit of $11,800. So you're starting off in the right direction. If you remember, we did not receive bids on the elevator, so we assigned the contractor a $100,000 placeholder. They've since signed a contract, received proposals, signed a contract for ThyssenKrupp elevator, and they have started installations, the elevator pit for that elevator. So the contract amount was $11,800 less than the $100,000 allowance. So that's, and what happens is we process a change order document, and that change order then needs 3 signatures. So we have my signature, the contractor's signature, and Jack's signature would make this official, and then they can put it on their requisition for payment. So that's change order 1. Change order 02 was reprocessed material. This was brought up in an earlier meeting. We're just tracking it still, so you know about it. This was material that the OPM had requested be brought on site, and they've invoiced for it. And so those are the only 2 proposals that we've received with hard numbers. Now, pending change requests is, I like to keep the building committees aware of what we've found, what we've seen, and things that may impact budget. There's some saw cutting of the Sallyport slab for new underground piping to floor drains. Our drawings, the plumbing drawings were showing new plumbing to the existing drains at the Sallyport, but we weren't showing the slab to be removed because there was one thought that we were going to intercept the invert from those floor drains as they go into the excavated area and then connect to existing piping. The inverts did not work out, so we're going back to the drain. So there's some saw cutting at a slab. There is 2 owner's directives to BC Construction to perform site work. This is site work that in the contract was going to be done by the owner, and then now the owner is asking the contractor to do site work.
What specifically is that?
There's some trenching and backfill for conduits and underground conduit installations, and also there's some prepping for the transformer pad and site work around the transformer pad.
We also had them haul off excavated material that wasn't clarified who owned it, and they trucked it out of there for us.
And the elevator that we just talked about being an $11,800 credit, it was a credit, but we actually purchased a larger sized elevator than was on the drawings. So we had an option to purchase the same size elevator or go to an enlarged elevator, and the decision on the owner's side was to go to a slightly enlarged elevator. So while you do receive a credit, I'm anticipating another change proposal for an increased pit size, some additional rebar for the pit. And they've also encountered some ledge when they excavated for the elevator pit.
Why do we go to a larger elevator?
The elevator that was decided upon meets the stretcher code requirement, and it was felt that that would be a better choice. It's not a code requirement for this installation, but it was felt that it was a better installation and a better choice.
Any guesstimates on what the cost differential will be?
Yeah, it was about $5,000 difference in the two. And then a small item, but again, it's something that we've requested a hardware revision on a bullet-resistant door. It was going to be provided with 3 hinges, and we switched that requirement to a continuous hinge just because of the weight on those doors. So we're anticipating a small number on that. So since they've started construction, really not a lot has happened as far as change requests. That's the good thing to report. On the mech side, there is one change order that's being formalized, and that's a permit fee for the electrical permit, and that's at $19,420. That's not the cost of the permit. The cost of the permit was around $15,000 and change, but they're entitled to put additional overhead and profit bond costs, and so it's increased that request. Within the contract documents, the bidders were not to include any costs for permitting. We were assuming permit fees were waived, but it was a decision to charge a fee for on the electrical side on the mech installations. And then,
Is the MEC going to pay for that?
They've submitted a request to State 911 to pay for it.
Okay.
and then another coordination with the tower was a request for BC Construction to install some grounding to the pad site for the tower. There was some back and forth on this. The tower contractor had said that they were going to be installing that, but now there's a question on who the tower installer is. So they backed off on that and asked BC to just get that prepped, because it does go under slab. So we don't want to wait to find out who the tower installer is. So in order not to delay, we're going to have BC put that ground wire in. It goes from the pad site back to the electrical closet, electrical room for grounding.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding, the bigger issue here is that the tower installation and construction, the procurement process for that is been a subject of debate. And this goes back to our prior project manager. So there was the understanding that it was, because it was on the state bid list, we didn't have to go out to bid. So they, an antenna installer, whatever builder was found, Mr. Capone and his company, and so now the question has been raised by our guys that they don't think that's correct. So we believe we are going to have to go out, or we think the MEC may have to go out to bid, and so the MEC is working on that with their council. So talking to the site meeting today, and again, correct me if I say this wrong, but there's discussions with the builder to put in lay the conduit into the electrical room, but his concern is that depending on which tower company you get, could mean a different grounding solution, different conduit requirements. So, hopefully the MEC is going to get this resolved quickly, because again, to me, it seems like we could just put a conduit in and we'd be fine, and then he wants to be able to pour the whole floor. But the contractor certainly has some concerns, but way above to use Cole's words, that's way above my pay grade. Did I say anything wrong?
No, you're correct. It's a tower installer that I thought that they had under contract, but I guess they don't.
How long will that procurement take?
I don't know, potentially it could take months.
There's a whole timeline where you have to have the specifications written, then you have to advertise it, then you have to wait, you have to put out the bid, then you have to wait for the bids to come in, then you have to review the bids, you have to certify it and award it, and several months.
So what does that delay?
It doesn't delay the contractor.
As long as he puts
long as he
correct
puts-
conduit
As
in
long as we
the
could
slab.
put the provisions in under slab for,
Right.
for a grounding wire, it was independent of BC construction. I don't see it impacting them.
May impact them, I mean, we're gonna be into December by the time they start. Hopefully that doesn't, they can still do it in December and, but by the time they get the foundation in, then you're putting the tower up in January, February, or,
And they're not gonna order a tower until they have a contract in hand, so there's also fabrication.
Yeah, but I guess the question is, does it impact BC construction? Does it impact the building project? And at this point, no, other than this grounding issue.
Wasn't there an issue with the foundation, though, as well, with the tower,
Size of the foundation.
that they wanted to adjust it a little bit, or?
well, I think they'll adjust it once they figure out what they're gonna put in. I mean, we're not talking a lot, you know, a few feet one way or the other,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about.
But it's not set in stone that we have to go out to bid, or is it?
The new executive director is working with, they have an attorney on board, and they're working with OSD, which is the Inspector General's office for procurement. He was fairly confident today that they had found a way to, they're not gonna have to go out to procurement. But
Alright.
until OSD signs off on that.
Right,
we don't
okay.
know the answer to that.
All right.
They did sign the contract for the fiber optic lines, because that was another bone of contention. But I guess they worked that out and they've signed the contract, so that's gonna get started. Isn't that pretty much what Gary had said?
Okay, so we need a motion to accept these change orders for the police station. We don't do the change orders for the MEC, I assume. No.
We do have a topic we need to discuss, though.
Okay.
Before, well,
Well,
the access control. That's along the same terms as the tower, where we can't pick a vendor that we like. It has to be, basically, you can use state vendors, but the over $50,000 on a 149 project, you have to put it out to a sealed bid. We're anticipating that this costs a couple $100,000 for the access control. There's already been questions on how we're going to power these magnets for the access control doors. So Brian can speak better on that. I don't know that we have answers yet because we don't have
Vendor select.
a vendor select and how they want to do it. So we are going to have to figure out a way to either do some sort of change order through a sub that's already on the job, or look into bidding that out as well, which could take time. Because if we just award it, and I had said this numerous times, we can't just award a state contractor. A state vendor has a contract with the state. We can reap the benefits of their pricing, but things over 50,000 still have to be bid out. And this is where we're at now. Todd Lindmark, after the last meeting, did discuss with the OSD. They have a helpline for technical questions like this, and you can't skirt this process. So if we pick somebody, we're going to open ourselves up for liabilities. And,
Well, I propose we bid it. I mean, I can put a spec together. If we
But-
can go to 3 vendors, you name the vendors.
but we still have to, at that, it's going to be a sealed bid, so we're going to have to ask for invitations. You can't, because there's different thresholds for different dollar amounts, and I don't know them off the top of my head, but if it's up to $10,000, use best judgment. If it's up to $50,000, you can get 3 vendors. If it's over 125, it's something else, and then the larger the amount is, the more requirements there are, and so we'd have to put it out publicly, I believe. So that was something we discussed today at our site meeting, and that has to be addressed ASAP, because as the RFI is for the where to run the power for the doors, this is going to potentially hold us up on different issues throughout the building.
Well, we could support anything you want us to do. If it means publicly bid it, if it means having BC get 3 numbers, whatever.
So I have trying to set up a meeting with a person that the town school uses, that's a procurement expert, to try to see what our options are to do this as fast as possible while still protecting the town. I'm trying to set that up, and he was giving me somebody's information. I'm going to be receiving somebody's information. That's all they do, to see what our options are to move forward and stay compliant with the state requirements.
Do you have a guesstimate as to what you think the cost will be?
I think we had a $200,000
Yeah.
allowance.
200,000.
So it's reasonable to assume that do you think it's reasonable to assume that it's in that range?
I think it is. I think, I'll go back to why we did not bid it within the GC package. And it comes back to our track record of finding out that what the municipalities were getting for final installations was not acceptable. You were getting low bid contractors trying to meet a specification that was difficult at best. And you were getting electrical contractors who were installing systems that was causing the owner problems very shortly after occupancy. And it was not a good situation. And we're trying to get a better solution for Norfolk. And if it means there isn't one and we have to go out to publicly bid it again and then take a low bid contractor, then we tried and we're back right where we started from. But I just have tried to warn you that there's a real threat with that, is something that you're going to buy and you're going to own, and good luck. It's not happened. It's happened that way on other projects, and it really has failed. I'm trying to avoid that.
And ideally, that's the right way to go, but state procurement laws
Right.
are very strict in how they require these things to be followed, and we could roll the dice, but if somebody didn't like it, we could have a major issue.
That's right.
Now, just as recently as, they just adjusted that law. When was it, last January?
Yeah. Municipal Reform Act.
So as of last January, if it was before last January, you could have gone out and got state contract vendor and bought it off a state contract and not had to go through this extra step of bidding. As of January, I think they've revised the law again. Now we may have to bid it.
So if it was goods and services, it would be different, but since there's installation and it's a project, that's the issue, because we just wanted to buy cameras. We could use the 39M, whatever, off the state procurement laws and use a state contract to buy the cameras and buy the hardware, all the hardware and stuff, but since there's the installation on a vertical projects where it changes the rules a lot.
Is there anything else in this project that has similar considerations?
No, this is, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that the one that's come up last week or so is the HVAC, right? I mean, we tried to specify Mitsubishi, and what has come back through the sub is that they're gonna use a
LG.
LG.
But if it's equal to or better, and that's in the judgment of the engineers, if it's equal to or better, then we're going to approve it.
But it was also a brand-new product that hasn't been really tested. That's what the contract is saying. So,
Some of these things our hands are tied.
yeah, I know.
We have to get really specific as to why we reject it, or then we're going to put the town at risk.
I mean, our hope was we were gonna get the submittals and then bring those to Mitsubishi and let them tell us what the differences are. And if there's enough differences, then we can reject it. so.
But we're getting submittals constantly, and it's not unusual that we get substitutions on what we specified. We have to evaluate that on every piece of equipment that's being submitted on, all the way down to a fastener or a hanger. Everything has to come through us for us to review it. And HVAC equipment, a lot of times they look to substitute off of a specification
Is it
We just have to hold the spec.
Specified Mitsubishi?
or equal. You can't straight line a spec.
Okay,
Yeah, you can't just say no substitution.
right.
And can the town make up the difference? Is there a dollar value that they can say, well, for another 10 grand, there's a $10,000 difference, is it worth to the town to pay the $10,000 difference to get the one that they want? Just like even with the security system.
If you feel you want to talk to the contractor about that, we can open up a conversation with them. The reason
Some
that
days it might
there's,
be worthwhile.
yeah, the reason that they're substituting obviously is a dollar issue.
Yep.
They wouldn't be substituting if it wasn't for dollars.
So we wait and see what they come back with, and then
Yeah, we have not seen it. But knowing that you're interested in that, we can open that conversation up.
but also with the VRF rebate, wasn't that for Mitsubishi or was that for all?
It was for a unit of that size.
How do we evaluate the equivalency of these units? I mean, do we have no ability to do that?
You do, and we do that.
Specs.
Whoever specified it,
Well, I'm assuming, let's just assume the specs are similar, but one unit is notoriously good, one is notoriously bad. Do we have the ability to make that judgment?
we do. We do. If we assess that it's not equal to or better in quality or performance, then we have a basis of rejection. Now, the contractor also has his right of refusal on that. So it's not always a straight and clear answer. It may go back and forth, and they may have to, because it's a dollar issue, and they've bid the project, and they bid it for a number. It may not be just as easy as saying, no, give us the specified
Well,
manufacturer.
I understand that they bid it on certain specifications, and I'm simplifying it when I say that it works appropriately, it doesn't break in 3 weeks. And I understand why they'd want to substitute it if they have a lower cost item that they can bring in and save a few bucks at the back end. I understand all that. But we're the end, we have to live with the end result. Do we have the ability to say, no, you're bringing in something that's an inferior product?
If you have evidence of that, yes.
And I assume, who makes that judgment?
The general contractor is also not a fan of what's happening with that, so he's waiting for the proposals, who he's been having some difficulties talking with the sub on that, because they haven't been forthcoming with information as of yet. He's gonna reach out to them. Once he gets the information on it, he has a contact with Mitsubishi, because he's dealt with a lot of these, and he agrees that that is definitely the system to go with, and that LG has a new kid on the block and not a proven track record. So he's going to seek advice from Mitsubishi. He has a lot of contacts in the business, present us with the information. On top of that, if we don't feel that's sufficient, we'll speak to Mitsubishi and others as well as Brian. But the general contractor was definitely not in favor of changing this. But that's also, that change order could hold it up too, because they need to find out what size pad that it's going to require, and without having the definitive answer on which size unit what we're using for a unit, that's changing his. It's holding up how he wants to lay out the underground utilities and the size of the pad and where we're running the conduit for the transformers, and so it's all integral to each other.
Well, while the mechanical contractor is a sub to BC Construction, they're a filed sub bidder. So it's not that BC Construction has subbed out to this mechanical contractor. It's an association through a filed sub bid that he's taken on this contractor. So there's not a real direct relationship there between the general and the mechanical contractor. So they wait for information, and it's not there yet.
Ultimately, it's the architect and the HVAC engineers who determine if whatever's submitted meets the specification or not. And it all depends on how tightly the spec was written. The performance criteria in there, do you have to show a certain number of installations that have been in operation for a certain number of years? If all that's in there, then you have some protection. If that isn't, and it's simply, you know, give me a unit this size that performs this function, then it's a little harder to reject it, just because you've heard through word of mouth that it doesn't have a good history or a long track record. It all depends on how tightly the spec was written.
In general, the submittals have been good. I think BC has done well to hold to the specified products.
Well, this is a big item.
We're talking about two big items, mechanical and your integrated technology. It's not just cameras, it's cameras, access control, intercom room recording, cell checks. It's all the stuff that you want to have working well
Right.
when you move in. And that's why I guess the easier approach would have just said, let's just all, we'll specify it, we'll bid it, we'll see what happens. And we haven't taken that approach. We're trying to find a better approach, but we'll do with whatever direction you want. If it means put a spec out to bid, we're back to where we started from.
Well, I think we have to do what we have to do. I mean, we're not going to circumvent the
No,
laws here.
No.
Yeah, that's not an option.
Again, I plan on having a conversation tomorrow. I'm just gonna, when I have a time, I'm gonna invite Jack and Bob and sit down and kind of review what our options are with a procurement specialist, and see what the best, use their knowledge to see where to go with this.
We find the better integrators out there are usually not the lowest bidders. That's the conflict. Now, if we put a spec out and it's really tight, and we find out that no one else can meet it except this contractor, then that's another option.
Okay.
okay, we do need a motion to accept the change order proposals,
So moved.
for the police station, adjustment to the elevator allowance and the reprocessed material to backfill areas.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
It was an excellent motion, Jim. It was a good motion.
Yeah.
I was let you know I seconded it.
Wow.
Okay, we are to the,
I can see we're going to continue the prior meeting into this meeting.
Any other more questions you have on the police station?
Just
Requisition for payments?
Just one quick follow-up. Did we do anything with the septic system?
Oh.
We were gonna
Yeah.
take some test bits.
We've
do
come
some
to
quick
agreement,
tests.
well, we did, and they came back with some numbers. There's all sorts of different issues with where it parked out properly. The biggest one is we had to go way underneath the live water line. They came back with some numbers, and it really wasn't cost effective to go that route, so we've come up with a potential deal with ILP to buy the capacity off of them. It's in the lawyer's hands right now to come up with some sort of documentation for
Okay.
ownership.
Attached to the budget that I handed out are two requisitions for payment. It's application number 3 for the police department, but I also showed you application number 1 for the Metacomet. As you can see, they're two separate invoices, invoicing really main floor and upper floor. So, application number 3, current payment due is $205,566.70. This has been reviewed and recommended for payment. You'll see under line 8, on the left side of the page, line 8 is the current payment due. And you'll see balance to finish.
You need a vote for that?
Yes.
we have a motion to accept the application for payment for $205,566.70.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
While you have this form in front of you still, the box on the lower left, that's the box that tracks change orders. And you'll see change orders to date is 000. While you approve change orders, the only way they get paid for them is through this application. So when the work gets completed, then they'll start to invoice off of the contract summary, change order summary. So that's just to note.
Are we making a payment for this, electrical permit fee that hasn't been approved yet?
That's the mech.
No, that's on the next page,
Oh, I got the
the
wrong one.
Metacomet application 1.
Bless you.
That's the middle comment. This is
Okay.
On the fire station.
Fire station, I handed out 2 floor plans. Those are the floor plans that you've had before, but I just thought I'd bring them back and show them to you again, because this is what we've been talking about. Last time you asked us to put out Scheme C for a cost estimate, and we did that and asked the cost estimator to give us a price for Scheme F. And I went back through budgets, and the budget that I handed out was March 17th, and this is the budget that has some yellow highlights on it. This was the budget that we indicated right after the bids were received for the police department. And we were always carrying a $4.8 million Norfolk Fire Department ever since 2/22 of 2016. And I went back even further to find out where that $4.8 million came from. And I went back as far as October 27th of 2015, when we had done an addition renovation and an addition only cost worksheet for the fire department. And our addition renovation at that time was at just over $9 million. And the addition only was just over $5 million. And this is when the numbers exceeded what the owners were looking to spend. But we took some of the lines off of that October 27th, 2015 budget. We transferred it onto what you have in front of you. So the construction new addition was $2,527,000. That came off of directly off the October 27th, 2015. But the renovation of existing was reduced from what we had shown, and the site work was carried from both of these, addition renovation and addition only. And this is when we were gonna, repave, redo the entire site, including tree clearing and including blasting and everything. So we never did have, at that time, we never had a floor plan that represented a 4.8 solution. We just had a 4.8 budget that backed into a $14 million appropriation. The 4.8 has been what we're carried for hard costs, and then, as you see, there were soft costs, which are other project-related expenses, and there was contingency. This has all been adjusted through the police station bid. So we're still looking at 4.8. When we received the bids, the cost estimate back, which is the second page, I gave you the summary sheet. This was, the entire document was emailed, and it's numerous pages of detail, but I just gave you the summary sheet. And it shows a building of 4.9 million with $439,000 if all of the site work was bid out prevailing wage and through a general contractor. The total is 5,384. So you might look at this initially and say, okay, we're $600,000 over budget. Which you did. In straight numbers, you are. But if you remember what happened with the police department, and you look at the middle column that's highlighted, or that's not highlighted, the middle column is 8,343,000. That's what was being projected from the same cost estimator for your police station. Competitive bidding drove that number back down to 7.5. my cost estimator, while they appear to be accurate, they're not low bidders on a lot of what they're estimating. And so there's no market value that's been put into their number for competitive bidding. So at 5.38, we still have to put it out on the market and see what competitive bidding might do to that number. So I'm not saying we're over budget. I'm saying we seem to be tracking at or slightly above, just like we did at the police station. There's also a question whether the owner does site work, which goes back to the police department project. We had the owner doing site work. So the 439,000 would be anticipated to be lower if the owner participates. And I know the owner has been doing, or the town has been out there doing clearing, and they're talking about doing rock removal. And that might impact these site numbers. The last thing to note is at the bottom and under the notes, note 1, they indicate an alternate price for the locker rooms of $85,940. That's going from scheme C to scheme F. They're anticipating an additional $85,000 worth to provide the locker rooms in scheme F. We're still very early in this process. I think if we develop these further, we'll have more information, and we'll look to get the project bid at the budget that you're anticipating. But we really need some direction as to which plan, still, which plan do we develop and continue to move forward with.
Brian, is that 85 number loaded, escalated, and contingency included and everything?
Yes.
Bob or Cole, you want to talk about just real quick what we're doing on the site? I mean,
With the assistance of the DPW, we use their contractor, Tree Tech, to remove all the trees. We had Richie Kadesh, who is a local contractor that we deal with, did a lot of stumping and did a lot of the site work. We realized that we had Cole brought in a couple of people to take a look at it, and there was a lot of unknowns with how much ledge was there. So the decision was made is, why don't we clear it and see, that way we're not paying for the unknown. We'll just clear it. So we looked for different vendors, and Bob was able to use a contact who gave us the best price because they removed the soil for free, so we didn't have to pay trucking or pay any of that, and we just paid excavation for the day charge. So as of right now, there are some berms that are left, and purposely left there so that way when you do go to blast, it'll kind of protect the church parking lot. But they removed a lot, and we discovered there is a large thing of ledge going all the way up. So now what we're planning on doing is having, being that it's under $50,000 that we're anticipating, gonna have like a invitation to come out and take a look at it and get some prices together to work with Brian, to get some sort of documentation how we want to bid it out. But if we can do it under $50,000, we should be able to have a site review and then pick the lowest responsible bidder
for blasting.
For blasting. Because we were figuring if we could get that ahead of the project, we have control of how the money's spent, and we can use our resources and kind of keep an eye on it. It's not. But as of right now, as of 3:15 or 3:45 today, they finished up with the machine, and so the site's going to sit until we figure out how to get the removal. Bob also was able to use the contractor, and they will remove all the ledge for free, or haul it away. I don't know if the excavator was in there, but
Everything.
they were
Just for the material.
Yeah, once we blast
which is
it,
a
they'll
massive
pull it all out.
help. Because I had prices.
It's a fair trade.
Yeah.
I had prices to do the same job that Bob was able to get up to $25,000, and I think we did it all for, say, 10 for the removal of the overburden. don't have the final numbers now, but they were here for several days, but it was a really good value, so we priced it all out, and they were by far, worked with the town and helped us out. So that's where we're at with this. There are concerns from neighbors already, which Cole can attest to, and Jack, surrounding properties, very concerned citizens when it goes to blast, so we have to make sure that we find the right company that will do everything by the book and make sure everything's monitored and protect us from
They have to do
issues.
a pre-blast survey.
Protect the neighbors and.
Protect the neighbors, yeah, pre-blast survey, and just make sure everything, we have to be careful.
So has the surface of the ledge been completely exposed for the entire footprint of the
Yes, there's a little overburden still because they had
drop-off at all?
a 4-yard
Just keep
bucket,
rising.
but it's
Goes
large.
towards that person's house, actually, it's
How far
concerned.
down do they have to go?
Should be 5 feet below the, street grade, really, to make sure that they have room to put the footing and foundation. The,
You confirm that with
Mhm.
structural, Brian?
We need to get some sort of scope of work, what we're looking for, see what it comes back at. We had a preliminary with an unknown for like up to 40 grand with an unknown. We're hoping that stays under that, and but I think the best thing to do at this point is to kind of come up with some bid documentation, have an invitation to see the site, invite people to come, take a look at it, and then
well, if we stay under 50 grand, all we have to do is have 3
three
bids.
quotes.
Right.
Right.
So if we call 3 guys that we know that we're comfortable with, get those 3 numbers, as long as they're below that threshold. If they're going over the threshold, then we'll send out the bid documents and,
I just want to make sure that, I want some sort of document stating that they're going to do all the pre-bid surveys, assess the properties, and make sure it's all in black and white, so that way if any damage does happen, we can, well, they said, well, we did a pre-bid, but I want to make sure that,
That's all required under Mass General Law, so they can't skate that. It's part of the permitting process.
okay. So that's the next step in the process of it.
Which all is a great benefit to the final budget.
Yeah.
I think you're definitely gonna be able to do it cheaper than putting it on bid
Yeah,
documents.
absolutely.
Because at that point, it would have been unknown.
Norfolk on the ship, they'll see ship change Norfolk, good about door, it may change of mental status. Next guy, Norfolk.
Okay, so where are we here?
The change of mental status, time to call.
So we're looking for direction on which scheme to pursue.
Yeah, while the cost estimate came in a little high, I'm not in
Yeah.
any panic mode over this.
No.
I'm thinking that a 4.9 building project almost is aligning with your 4.8 budget, but we have to do sub-site work in that number. We'll continue the project forward.
Well, my personal preference is scheme C. It gives us a little more garage space, which we need, and obviously it's saves close to 100,000 on the budget, which is tight. And I think it gives us more flexibility as far as locker room, as far as male, female situation, you know, and years down the road.
Make a motion to go as Plan C.
Second.
Okay, now, discussion.
I agree with what you said. Go ahead.
I agree with what you said, too. I would just add, this is, for me, never been an issue of whether there's a locker room or not. I mean, I'm fine with them having a locker.
Right.
It's never been that
No.
issue. The issue very simply is that I do not want to give up base space. And if we were to go with the other plan, we basically are accommodating today's vehicle. We just don't have any, there's nothing to grow.
And we're accommodating
That is
today's
not a good decision to
staff
make.
too, as far as,
Yeah.
you know, male versus female, you know, numbers.
Yeah.
And, you know, that could change 10, 20 years from now, and that would be a problem, I think, with plan with scheme F.
And the issue for me, even above the garage space, I had discussion earlier today with Brian, and talking in terms of the numbers that were presented, and clearly stated that his job is to be the optimist, my job is to be the pessimist, and given the fact that the locker room, cost out at just shy of $86,000. That's a rather large number when we're looking coming out of the gate somewhere around 600,000. I mean, one of the things that's not included in the sheet is the remediation for any asbestos and so forth that we have on the site. Matt has performed that assessment with a licensed contractor, and those numbers are anywhere between $80,000 and $100,000. So that's additional money that isn't earmarked in this proposal that has to be planned for. So I think that's the biggest issue there. I mean, you have the garage and the issue of the overall dollars. I think my concern, again, playing the role of pessimist, is that we need to be able to ensure that the monies that were voted upon are going to be adequate to build a station that's sufficient for the operation of the department, not only for today, but years down the road. And I know that's been Jim's position since day one. And I think by doing this and taking this vote, it gives us somewhat of a level of insurance as we move forward.
Well, I think we all know that building built in the 60s, we're going to have issues that are unanticipated. It's a given.
It's another factor, indeed.
And this is close, Brian, by any stretch of the imagination. This is a very tight budget. And to Cole's point, we don't want to build a station that can't meet our needs, both today and 15, 20 years down the line. So I don't know that we're done tinkering with this as these numbers firm up. Because when we're all said and done, we've got to make sure it works.
That's exactly
So
right.
any additional dollar that gets pushed onto this is something I think we've got to try and avoid.
And that's why I agree that tinkering, if you want to tinker with Scheme F, you're just tinkering up. And I think the tinkering that we're looking to do is tinker
Tinker
it
down.
down.
Exactly right.
We have a motion that's on the floor and seconded. I guess, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Scheme C it is.
Told you I'd have you out of here by 5
All
o'clock.
right.
Are we doing anything with the tower that's existing?
I was kind of hoping you'd keep us till 5:45.
Sorry about that.
Looking forward to the meeting, huh?
Is that tower staying remaining?
We'll give you that.
Yeah, we haven't decided to do anything with the tower.
We had Capone came and reviewed,
Nah, I don't have it with you.
did it for free.
No, but I mean,
We've got some invoices from the site work.
Yeah,
Process has been that you've authorized me to pay them, and
right.
I'll bring a whole summary next month of,
All right.
our next meeting. Of,
All right.
all those invoices.
So-
That's,
Okay.
at some, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
At some point, can we start putting a plan together for staging of how we're going to operate the station after Chuck's people move out? We're probably about a year. Chuck will probably be out of there by this time next year.
Hope so.
So, we've talked about it briefly, but, maybe if we can start hammering out some details. I don't know if it's, Matt, Bob, myself, or, someone else, if we can start putting that together, I think that'd be really helpful at this point.
Well, I would think that you folks are better positioned to figure that out than we are. I mean,
Yes.
you're the operational side of the house, so I would never intrude on your wisdom, Cole.
So when should we meet again? What, 2 weeks? Or do we need to meet in 2 weeks? I don't know.
Seems like it would be good. I'd rather go.
When,
Is there any way, I mean, I don't know if we need you at the site meetings, it would be helpful, or if somebody from you, and I don't know if we can align those meetings with these meetings, if that,
I haven't been really notified of the site meetings, so I apologize. But also, the last one I know was 10 in the morning, and then I have to be here at 4 in the afternoon, so the
Yeah.
timing of that
Right.
isn't working.
that's my point, yeah.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
you had it 2 in the afternoon, then that would make it a little more
That's why we couldn't have
convenient.
the site meeting at 2.
that's what I mean. I don't see why not.
so how frequently should we start meeting now?
We should be every 2 weeks out on the job site.
So the 19th?
19.
Well, you're talking about the site
saying
meetings.
Right.
Site-
No, I'm
site-
talking about here, this
Well,
committee, how frequently should we be meeting?
Yeah, why don't we?
Once a month.
we'll
I
do
think
site
you need to
meeting.
meet once a month and take action on requisitions and payment requests, but other than that, I don't see that you need to meet more than once a month.
So the 3rd or the 10th of October?
for the next requisition and update. Site meetings can still happen, though.
What's your preference?
Yeah, do we want to, I don't know if we want to talk about the project manager at all either. I mean,
Actually, I have jury duty on the 10th, so.
I don't
Third
think the
works
third
for
would be
me.
enough time for them to present their monthly recap and their submittal. Because it takes them a couple of days to tally that up, so we'd be better off.
Nothing
It's
serious.
not
about
that
it.
So
Tuesday.
yeah, I don't know if it's
No, I
available for
have
the
no
10th.
idea, it's just jury duty.
When do you have jury duty?
Thursday.
The 10th.
He has the 10th.
I'm
so
not available the 10th, but that,
So
if
the
that
3rd?
works for everyone else, that
October 3rd?
will hold it up for me.
October 3rd?
yeah, can Cresta get his bill? That's your question?
Yeah, that's the only fear is that
Yeah.
they have to put together their invoice. And Brian has to review it, and then we have to approve it. I don't know if they can do it that fast, but they can always end it a week early, I guess, and just
You wanna
doing
go to
monthly,
this-
we can have them bump the.
Mike's not available the 10th. You want to go to the
Well,
17th?
Doesn't have to be scheduled around me.
Yeah, I mean, he may be available.
I think they would
may let him
prefer
on,
the
they may
3rd
not.
over the
Jury
17th.
duty.
Yeah.
Where's your jury
Hey,
jury
that
duty?
what?
Dedham?
PC would prefer the 3rd over the
A
17th.
lot of
That would
times
push
you're
the
out at 1
requisition
o'clock.
I
until...
could be, right.
Yeah,
Just
you
tell
don't-
him
you
you-
don't
just tell him
know.
you'd convict him no matter what
That's
happens and
true.
you'll be out of there.
Hopefully I.
Don't let the facts get in the way of your
hopefully it gets
judgment.
called.
All right, so,
I think Brian's saying the 3rd is okay if you want
Oh.
to just keep on the 3rd.
Okay.
okay, that's fine.
So we'll talk to Mike about changing the job meetings till 2 o'clock, and then you can be at those meetings.
Yeah, it's better.
All right.
Because the
I don't
other
see why
thing
I
that came
couldn't.
up today was about, he's got Costa Masonry going in there, and they're gonna start setting the doors, and, you know, how are we gonna handle the doors if we don't have the hardware or the security system in place? I said, run a pipe to it, but he goes, well, do I run it to the hinges, or do I run it to the striker?
Yeah, they send us RFIs constantly on those questions, and we'll easily answer them. Because all the infrastructure
I need to-
is included in the Griffin Electric's contract. We just tell them where the back boxes are located. So adding the wire, adding the device will be easy down the road, because all the infrastructure is pipes, conduits, back boxes.
Okay, he seemed like he was questioning that today. So having you there would at least eliminate those lingering questions, so.
So, Jack, you'll be in touch with Brian on when the next construction meeting is?
Sure. We'll plan on the 3rd, or no, 2 weeks
No,
from now.
2 weeks from now, 19th.
2 o'clock.
17th, the
19th,
19th, and then the 3rd.
correct. Make them both at 2 o'clock.
Right.
Brian, just one last quick comment, I know we want to get out of here. You didn't hand out the site plan today, but I was just looking at the site plan from last time for the fire station.
Yeah, it's similar.
On the bays, you've got a couple of doors that exit to the direction to the west that enter right out onto paved driveway. So there needs to be at least a sidewalk that's not shown along there, or a grass strip or something. Because you presume could potentially be walking out into traffic if someone's pulling in, heading toward the back of the building. You could be walking out the side of the last bay, right into that traffic, if you will. That
Yeah,
makes-
there's
that makes sense.
a paved lane that goes right along the side of the building.
Goes literally against the side
Yeah.
of the building with no buffer whatsoever. So
Yeah,
you
to-
swing one of those doors open and you walk out.
Yeah,
you
to
could
pull it
step
away
in front of a car.
with curving. Yeah.
And I didn't know if we wanted to consider putting some sort of a grass strip in there for a potential future expansion for another bay. That is even
Well,
considering
that
at this
impacts
point, or-
rock removal then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
so
we're
that
trying to-
pushes you further out.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Just wanted to bring it up.
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
meeting adjourned.